changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more complaining. People, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more.
Let me go ahead and introduce you to Dr. Brian Matthys. He is in Kansas City, Missouri, and that is where I met him through another friend. And as I said, he's been my dermatologist for quite a while. And he is an inventor, he is an author, he is a doctor, he is a faith-based dad, and as he says, he is a recovering lifeguard. So we're going to talk about his new book, Dermboy Saves Vacation. Well, let's welcome everybody, Dr. Brian Matthys. Everybody say hello. Brian, good to see you.
Hi, Will. Great to see you. Thanks for having me this morning.
I should say great to see you at this angle without you looking over my shoulder or looking at wherever you are usually looking when we are together. Let's throw this up to remind people of the URL, etc. What do you mean by recovering lifeguard?
Well, I think, when I see people all the time, it's, a lot of what we do is talk about sun protection and sun exposure. And as you can imagine, it's the antithesis of what I used to do, which was be outside all the time, not under an umbrella, at a pool, serving people and helping people, but not so much helping myself and my skin.
Got it. Now, before we get into the book, you invented something, and I'd like you to share that. And I know that it's going through various iterations. I'd like for you, if you would, to tell us about the the sun exposure app, or not app, but device that you create.
Sure. Thanks, Will. What we're working on is, well, let me back up for a second. So, we look at things and we find things that are maybe not the way they should be or the way we want them to be. And so in my field, we know that sun protection is key, but most people really don't know how to use sun protection. They still get sunburned, they still get wrinkles, they still even get, unfortunately, skin cancer. And so I'm trying to make a skin cancer, skin aging free world to mirror what you're doing in a complaint free world, Will. And what I did is I invented and patented a smart tracker, a smart band for the Apple Watch. We made a standalone product initially, but we're making a smart band for the Apple Watch called the Baruv SunSense Smart Band. And so we had a standalone product initially, and we now have a product that's going to partner with an Apple Watch that will basically, finally, you'll have the future of health and beauty on your wrist.
Very cool. Now, I would imagine, and I may be wrong here as to your motivation, but living here in Key Largo, Florida, where I am, there's a lot of people out in the sun constantly. I was talking to one of my neighbors yesterday as we were walking back from the marina, and she is very, very, very dark. It is interesting to me that, because I actually looked up, where did this concept of having a tan come from here in our culture? Because that is not universal. When I was in China, the women there especially all carry umbrellas because they don't want the sun. They don't want to look darker. But here it goes back 100 years or so, when the people who had money were able to not have to be inside, but were able to be outside playing tennis, going on their boats, etc. And so it actually became a mark of the privileged to have a tan. And unfortunately, nowadays we have people with a lot of sun issues. And this woman who had gone from having a nice dark tan to just looking very atypical. What do you recommend as far as for people? Is the key just to stay inside or to slog on, SPF 100? Is there a middle ground that we are able to get a little sun without doing damage to ourselves?
I think that's a great question, Will. I think we're all looking for the Goldilocks zone, right? Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And I think that, I don't know that we've really discovered it yet. I think what I want to do with my device is I want everyone, I want people to realize that sunscreen isn't enough, and that we're going to give you some insights that then you can take some action on to then decide how to change your behavior. We don't want everyone to go inside. We don't want everyone to live in a cave. We want everyone to love life outdoors. That's our goal that's the mission of our company. We just want people to understand what they're signing up for. It's a little bit like calories sometimes. Maybe you don't want to know the calories of a certain food, but if you're watching your weight or if you're health conscious, then you might want to know how much sugar is in something. If you don't, you don't. And if you don't care about your sun exposure, then my product won't be for you, just like my book. But if you care about the health and beauty of your skin, this product that I developed, the wearable, it's like temperature. It's like, knowing how hot it is. It's just information. Then you can change your behavior. You don't, if it's 100 degrees outside, you're not going to probably wear your winter coat outside, but maybe you will if you want. It's your choice. So I think that's really what we're gearing for. We don't want people to stay indoors. We don't want people to not go on their boat, which I'm excited to sometime visit you in your boat. But we just want people to love life outdoors safely, no matter what your skin color is, no matter what your history is.
My ex-wife was Cuban, and she always got such a wonderful dark tan, whereas I'm Welsh on both sides of my family. And as Woody Allen used to joke, I don't tan, I stroke. Um, I always used to get burned. I could never figure out how to get a tan. And what she would show me was, number one, don't be outside between 10 and 2 in the day. And when you are, always wear sunscreen that is SPF 50. She says enough comes through just to trigger the melanin in your skin and to give you a bit of a tan, but it doesn't allow you to get burned. And since then, I have been able to somewhat get a tan. Would you comment on those two things about avoiding the sun during the hottest part of the day? And is that a good idea? Are we okay if we're wearing SPF 50?
I think that's a good question. So I would prefer to not place limits on when you go outside. I think that's why we invented our device, just to give you information. I think it's too dogmatic to say don't go outside between 10 and 2, because that's when the fun is. Maybe my parents used to say, nothing good happens after midnight. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But I would say lots of good things happen between 10 and 2 outside. And I think having, wearing sun protection, wearing, even sun protective clothing is huge, because it just gives you more protection. I think a challenge is that people don't know how to use sun protection. And that's one of the reasons why we say sunscreen's not enough. Because if you look at the back of a sunscreen bottle, it will say something like apply liberally. No other medicine or no other healthcare product on the planet is so generic in its application. It says apply liberally. What does that mean? That means something different for you, something different for me. And so one of the challenges is that sunscreen is confusing. It's hard to use. Sometimes it's sticky. Sometimes they don't know what number to use. They don't even know what the numbers mean most of the time. And so we want to make it simpler with our product, with our Beruv sun tracker for Apple Watch. We want to help people just get information. And once they get this information, they can make a better decision. And that's the whole point. So I would say higher sunscreens are always better, but not because of why you think. Because if you put an SPF 50 on, for example, most people are getting about a 12, because they just don't use enough to get the number on the bottle on their skin. So that's another reason why we invented our product.
Well, that's a very interesting comment, that we don't get enough. And what about this idea of, I had heard, and we're going to get to the book, but I want to dispel some myths and ask you some question about sun exposure. I had heard that the idea that sunscreens are, they say they're waterproof, but they're not necessarily. That if we're out at the pool or we're on the boat, we should actually be applying repeatedly. What do you think about?
Yeah, I agree. There's no such thing as a waterproof sunscreen. There's sunscreens come in all flavors, but either there's no water resistance, there's 40 minutes of water resistance, or there's 80 minutes of water resistance. And that means that you can be in the water for 80 minutes and not lose the effectiveness of whatever you put on. So remember, most people get about a quarter of the sunscreen on that they need to. So the number is much lower. So again, if you're getting a 50 on, you're getting about a 12 on your skin most of the time. And so then you can be in the water for up to 80 minutes, but you still only have that 12 on. And that can be a challenge, because where you are in Florida, the sun is much more potent. There's the UV index, which is on our phones and Apple Watches. That really illustrates the strength of the sun. So when the sun is really pumping at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have a quarter of the sunscreen you have on, and you're maybe a fair skin type like you will, you're just putting yourself at risk. And one thing about a tan that's interesting is I kind of like to say a tan is a little bit like a burglar alarm. It's nice. It's nice to have a burglar alarm, but when it goes off, that means they're already in your house. So how can we be a little bit more preventive, and how can we keep them out of our house? And a tan is the same way. I don't know if there is really a healthy tan, because the tan illustrates that the sun has already stimulated the pigment cells on your skin, and with that comes a lot of changes that we associate with aging, and we associate with like health related concerns on the skin. So it's a challenge. It's really hard, because I want people to love life outdoors, but I just want you to protect your skin, or at least know what you're getting. So that's why we invented this metric called true sun exposure, which takes your sunscreen and your skin type, which is 1 through 6. So 1 being very fair, red hair, blue eye, 6 being like dark skin African American. It takes your skin type and your sun protection and gives you an insight, a number, kind of like steps or calories, that then you can make a decision on how you want to manage your outside behavior.
I would imagine it also has to do with the time of year, because I know living here in Key Largo, we wear shorts all the time because the weather is between 70 and 75 and 85 pretty much year round. However, I know that I can go to the pool in the winter, December, January, and I get with no sunscreen. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I'm saying that I'm out there and I see no tan lines. Whereas right now, if I go out there, I'm going to get burned if I don't wear sunscreen. So how important is the time of year, and how do we factor that in?
That's a great question. So basically the UVA rays, there's 2 rays that we see from the sun, UVA and UVB. The UVB rays are the rays that stimulate your tan cells, the tan, and those are much more potent in the summer. That's why you can get suntanned, you can get sunburned. But in the summer, excuse me, in the winter, the UVA rays are the predominant ray of the sun that we see, or that we experience, and that's more of an aging ray. So those rays age your skin. They can cause health concerns besides aging, but that's what they're typically known for. So interestingly enough, those UVA rays are the same all year long. And the UVB rays go up in the summer and then come down in the winter. And that's why when you go to the pool in the winter months, January, December, January, February, you're not seeing tanning because the UVB rays are so low, but the UVA rays are the same. And they penetrate your skin much deeper than the UVB rays. So that's a reason we suggest people wear sun protection all year long, because they get those UVA rays stay the same. And even though you can't see a change on your skin sees the change at a lower level.
How effective is makeup with SPF? Is that important for women, and also lotions? Nowadays, everything seems to have SPF. When I go now, here things are different, but clothing is even sold with SPF listed on it here in the Keys, shirts, etc., hats. How important is lotions, makeup, etc., for men and women?
I think all of it's important. I think that's where you have to figure out what you'll wear. When I'm at the pool, I wear a sun protective shirt, in the water, out of the water, mainly because it's easier. Then I only have to be concerned about my face, my ears, my neck, my hands and legs. Whereas if you wear no shirt, then you have your chest and abdomen and back. It's just easy to miss stuff. And the sun protected clothing is great because it's water resistant all the time. So when it has a UPF of 50, it's 50 all the time. Water, no water, doesn't matter how you put it on or how much you wear, you just wear it. So I think the sun protected clothing makes it easy, especially for kids. Our kids wear it because it's just easier. The other thing is sunscreens and moisturizers and makeup are hugely important. I would again say often you're not wearing enough makeup for women to get the number on the bottle on your skin. So we kind of encourage people to double up, meaning put on your makeup or put on a sunscreen first and then maybe a makeup. Or they make some pretty great tinted sunscreens that can actually serve as makeup for lots of women. So there's all kinds of amazing things that people can wear to really help their skin so they can love life outdoors.
As a scuba diver, I just want to make everyone aware too, when you're here in the ocean or you're in the bay, to be sure and wear things that are reef safe. I remember that I first scuba dived here 30 plus years ago, and now the reefs don't look the way they did then. They're nowhere near as vibrant and beautiful. They're more brown. I went diving on Sunday. The fish are still beautiful, but the reefs themselves are starting to change. So be sure and wear something that is reef safe, because as your sunscreen wears off, it gets absorbed by the reef and it actually kills the reef, which of course is a living entity. Well, let's jump into the book. And before I jump into the topic itself, I want to ask you, why a children's book as opposed to something for adults?
Well, I think for those of us that have kids or read to their kids, I think that a lot of times these quote books are really meant for adults, and there's messages that can permeate the adult brain, and then it can help change behavior so the kids can then change their behavior. So I think I've always wanted to do a children's book. I've been practicing now for 22 years, and when I left to start my residency in dermatology, my going away party, on the napkin it said "Adios, Dermboy," and so that was basically the creation of Dermboy. And I think, and so 22 years later, I finally got my children's book out. It just took me a minute to get it done. I'm not as prolific as Will is with regarding to books, but I just wanted a children's book because I want a fun way to talk about the sun. I think, we joke on our website, it says block the sun, not the fun. And I think people sometimes think about, protecting your skin as sort of a not a fun thing, like we're trying to steal your fun. And that's just not the point. I think the point is for people just to have information so they can make a better decision outdoors. And that's what Dermboy does. Dermboy, he fights his nemesis, Rojo the lobster, who comes down from the sky to try to burn people. And I think the goal is just, have fun outdoors, but just protect your skin. I think because I see lots of people. I had a patient a few weeks ago who came in. She's in her late 60s, and she literally started crying in the office because she was afraid to go outside because she'd had a melanoma, which is a deadly skin cancer, and she just didn't know how to manage it. And she knew she maybe wasn't doing the right thing, but she was just crying in my office. And I think that and that's not atypical. That may sound unusual to people on the podcast, but I see that all the time. I see people that won't go outside or are afraid to go outside because they've had skin cancer, or they're aging at a fast rate and they just don't like what they see in the mirror. And so writing a children's book for me was just a fun way to teach people about the sun and like I say, block the sun, not the fun.
I love the idea of we learn from reading, excuse me, to our kids. I always loved to read The Little Prince to my daughter because it always gave me what I needed to hear. Now, tell us about your kids, please, their ages, if you would.
So I have, oh yeah, so thanks. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and we're getting our third child in February. So we're getting a full family here, and my kids are great. They wear hats and they wear their sun protection, and even if sometimes they don't like it, but we encourage them to be sun wise and to follow the example of Dermboy so they can love life outdoors for sure.
I didn't realize that you were Dermboy. I did. That makes it that much more rich. Now, you've also created along with it a coloring book. I see. What was the thinking behind doing the book?
I think when you're writing a book, as you know better than me, well, you want to have accessible things that can get the message, and the coloring book is just a way for kids to engage more. Kids are so awesome because they're creative. They don't have they haven't been beat up like some of us adults have been in their creativity and their vigor for life. They just love it. And so having a coloring book is just a way for the kids to engage with the book in a different way, where they can make Dermboy blue if they want. They can make Rojo the lobster orange if they want. They can do things that just encourage their own creativity while still, reading the words and hopefully just getting the message to love life outdoors safely and have fun.
My older brother had skin cancer. My dad had skin cancer. My older brother had the same hairstyle as me, and they ended up having to take a very large spot out here, which left a scar that he was embarrassed about. Excuse me. There we go. For many years, as a child, I was born in the 60s. You never really heard about skin cancer, and then it became something really important. Why do you think the change? Do you think it was just our awareness and understanding of the destruction that the sun was doing to our skin?
That's a great question, Will. I think lots of reasons for the change. I think that it's a multifactorial thing where we actually have more leisure time now than we did even in the 20s and 30s. And so we have, ironically, climate change, increasing outdoor temperatures, even by, tenths of degrees, increases time spent outside. There's a correlation between there. So we have more leisure time, more, a little bit of climate change in the mix. And then you throw in really what drove a lot of it was tanning beds. People used to go to a place and sit in a tanning bed once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. And so you have that sort of combination. And now, skin cancer is an epidemic. We diagnose it every 10 seconds in this country.
Every 10 seconds?
Yeah, it's a big,
Wow.
We diagnose over 9,500 skin cancers a day just in the US. And it's just something that, I just do a lot of. Every Monday, I'm, cutting off parts of noses and ears and faces and scalps, and even places you wouldn't imagine because of sun exposure. So my goal is really to just provide people information, help them know that sunscreen isn't enough, provide tools like Dermboy Saves Vacation and our Beruve, fitness tracker for your skin that's going to be made with Apple Watch, so that people can know what's happening, customized to themselves, their skin, and then they can make better decisions. So hopefully they'll have fewer regrets.
My guest is Dr. Brian Matthys of Epiphany Dermatology in Gladstone, which is a part of. Are you in Gladstone or Kansas City?
We're actually in Riverside, believe it or not.
Riverside, that's right, there by the big red X.
Exactly, just 5 minutes north of downtown Kansas City. Yep.
Right, and you beautiful view of Kansas City where you are. And Brian is going to be, timing allowed, making a contribution to the new version of my book that I'm working on, because Brian bought copies of one of the ways we met. He ordered copies of his book for everyone, and I think we made a mistake and sent just bracelets and not books, and then we ended up talking and everything. So highly recommend Brian as a doctor, and you should definitely check out Dermboy Saves Vacation. So he does save vacation, right? Vacation is saved thanks to him.
Vacation is saved. Yeah, we walk through the seasons, as you can imagine, for different vacations at the beach, in the mountains, all over the place. And he definitely saves the day. Yep, he does not let Rojo the lobster, his arch nemesis, get the final say. That's for sure.
Rojo means hot in Spanish. Is that correct?
Red.
Red. Okay, red.
Red. I know, it's very creative, right? Yeah, you Rojo the lobster. But I think the idea was that, a lot of people say they get burned like a lobster. And so we wanted to make a fun, I wanted to make a fun nemesis, that was easily beatable by Dermboy in order to help people save their vacation for sure.
One last question, and I'm going to put you on the bit of a spot here, and if you don't want to answer, that's okay. Is one brand of sunscreen better than another, or does that even really factor?
I think so. I would say the brand of sunscreen that's best for you is the one you prefer the most. So there's so many factors. It's like anything. It's like, is there a better car? Is there a better phone? I mean, I think it's it's the story you tell yourself about the product you use, or the cosmetic acceptability, meaning that if you love the way your sunscreen feels, you're probably going to use more. And if you hate the way it feels, then you're not going to use as much. So I would find a product that you love, even if it's a little bit of a lower SPF. Like if it's an SPF 30 instead of a 50, but you love it. Remember, if you're using a 50 and you don't love it, you're probably getting a 12 on. But if you're using a 30 that you really like the way it feels, then you're probably going to get closer to a 30. So you might actually get a higher protection by using a lower product just because of the way it feels on your skin.
So the key is, as I said, use more and use it more often. The URL is Dermboy. Let me spell that, as in dermatology, DERMboy.com, www.dermboy.com. You can order the book, you can order the coloring book, and be sure and read it to your kids so you take it in as well. Brian, any other comments you'd like to share before we let you go?
No, I'm just, I'm really excited. I think we have a neat opportunity to really change the culture of how people manage their skin. And I honestly believe that this product, and not because I did anything, but by pushing something to the forefront, by pushing something, that could potentially have the opportunity to be on 130 million risks, because that's how many Apple Watches are out there. I really think we can make a huge difference in health and in aging by prevention, so that we want people to love life outdoors, but to have actionable insights and have them help, let them help Dermboy help themselves love life outdoors.
Love it. And this is a way of casting great things into the future. Imagine if instead of 9,500 skin cancers a day, it goes down to 6,000 and 5,000 and less and less and less. That's absolutely wonderful. Everyone, take care of your skin. It's the largest organ on your body, and this is a great way to do that. Check out the book. Once again, the URL is Dermboy Saves Vacation, which I just love the name, even saying it, and also check out the coloring book. Brian, thanks a lot, and I look forward to seeing you next time I'm in Kansas City.
My pleasure, Will. It's really been an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, enjoy today, and we'll see you soon.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining people. Their lives are changing.